So it's Monday again, and honestly, since this is a bit of like a random talk channel, I think maybe I'll post as desired because muting these posts to just once a week has me forgetting some of the things I'd like to talk about that happened during the week. So, anyway, wow, what an incredible show at the Super Bowl from Bad Bunny. Honestly, going into these things, whenever it's an artist that I have like a modicum of an emotional investment in, my only hope is that they don't fall off for a prop or get into any accidents whatsoever. So, because I don't live in the US, I first take a glance at the stories about the performance online to see if there are any tragic moments or things of the sort. So once that's out of the way, I then feel at ease enjoying the artistry of the performance. And while I, obviously as a non-US resident, may not be the target audience of the Super Bowl and its halftime show, I'll admit nonetheless that the past handful of shows have been really nice. I actually watched the Beyonce Christmas special live since it was on Netflix at the time, and that was a blast. Kendrick Lamar's performance, of course, was a blast, and now Bad Bunny's performance was just peak. I'm still in awe. I can only imagine how long it took them to plan all of that out. That out of the way, I'll address briefly the alternative Super Bowl held around the same time the main one ran. So when the news of this alternative Super Bowl event broke out last year, I commented on what it appeared to be. It was like a spite-driven event. There was no reason for these people to have a parallel event on the same day as the Super Bowl with some form of intention to outperform the Super Bowl. I wonder why people in these conservative and often religious ecosystems feel the need to prove themselves even when not necessary. Like they've proven themselves strong at the polls already, but it appears that everything needs to be like a competition with them. And when I see things like this, my mind goes to like a church service I attended in 2023 where the preacher commented on things of this sort. She mentioned how there is no need for Christian alternatives to things like Halloween and night parties, and if truly the joy of the Lord is as sufficient as many Christians claim it is. And I agree, because that's how it ought to be, really. It's part of the reason why I'm a bit opposed to the contemporary Christian music label. Like, call the music what it is: pop, rap, or even rock songs with Jesus littered through the lyrics. Putting that into perspective, right, I could take the clean version of a profanity loaded rap track and swap out some of the words with Jesus. Then I'm looking for a qualification for airplay on Christian music radio and even a Grammy. So how can something that claims to be like a representation of Christ be so rooted in worldly art forms? That, like, do you get? I know I might be nitpicking a little over what's considered what in terms of music, but to me it doesn't really come off as a little hypocritical. Okay, I suppose the label, that CCM label, it serves the purpose of, letting people know beforehand that, hey, you're getting like Metro Boomin level rap beats, but the lyrics are rooted in the faith. Okay, I hear it's even acceptable these days to use profanity in CCM. So, yeah. Oh well, you shouldn't confuse CCM with gospel music though, because Gospel music, on the other hand, is like its own art form and isn't always necessarily religious, even. So sometimes I like to at least try to get the root ideology, fueling certain kind of puzzling events in society. Like, why is it that people act in a certain way that is both puzzling yet oddly predictable? Like, let me try to kind of investigate this need to compete idea a bit further, because I believe it's the root of many issues in society today. I'll start by using my anecdotal experience in southern Nigeria as a reference. Now, depending on where you live in the south, Halloween isn't really a thing, so I can't speak directly to Halloween or Christian alternatives to Halloween for that matter. I can, however, comment on something like what I'll refer to as modesty culture. Basically, there's a strong level of disdain or for donning apparel associated with being of the world. So think skirts above the knee, dreadlocks, full beards, crop tops, tattoos, tight-fitted clothing for women, and things like that. Many times I've been around people who interact kindly enough with people who maybe have dreadlocks or wear acrylic nails. Then the very second that they are not within their line of sight, the gossip begins that very second. And I'm not even implying this is like surface level gossip. The comments you hear might just have you reconsidering if it's the same person that you also saw. So, for example, picture a woman in her mid-20s in a crop top above knee length. So these are the kind of comments that in my head. So you hear something like, so that's how Chinenye started her shower, which is like prostitution. Or no wonder Chinenye's father does not used to ask us for school fees again, because they are implying that, Chinenye's prostitution is so lucrative now that she's rich enough to pay for her own tuition, which, the bar is in hell. But, I could go on, but I'm trying to say people jump to the wildest conclusions over highly superficial non-issues. It's the same from what I can observe about the US. For example, I watched a show called Hunting Wives on Netflix recently that sort of puts this better than thou lifestyle on display. Only that they happen to be blatant hypocrites. And in real life, actually, many of these people also happen to be hypocrites themselves. So what really is the cause? From what I can discern, these people operate basically from a place of like unaddressed spite. It's clearly gone beyond spreading the word, because if, like, for example, Kid Rock, I believe, doesn't make CCM. It's clearly not for like the betterment of society. Else, you'd address the actual issues or even non-issues you have with certain events and not hit on them so much to the point of creating your own rival events. Do you get? Mind you, this Erica event wasn't even like marketed as its own independent thing. It was marketed almost explicitly as a rival to the Super Bowl after they announced Bad Bunny as the host. By the way, we have a verse from the book of 2 Corinthians in the New Testament that sort of speaks to this issue. Chapter 10, verse 12 of 2 Corinthians quotes, for we dare not number ourselves or compare ourselves with some who commend themselves. For in measuring themselves by themselves and comparing themselves among themselves, they are not wise. So all of this to say, and I might be misinterpreting a bit, but I could say that this is just a lengthier version of comparison is a thief of joy. So the question remains, if the actions of Erica Kirk's company and prudent Christians at large aren't out of spite, right? If they're not done out of spite, then what truly is the motive? Like, having been down this alt-right rabbit hole before now. Let me try to recall why such things would have gotten a bit of a rise out of me. So from what I could remember, when such rival events would pop up, the bulk of the thrill will always be like the possibility of breaking the internet for good. And by that, for good, I mean, that the right wing agenda or the right wing ideas would spread widely and bring people over to what I would have called our side at the time. And by the way, they use the phrase our side a lot to really like lock you into this pseudo familial headspace. I remember one of such big events being Elon Musk's reposting of what was that film? Matt Walsh's what was that one? 2022. What is a Woman? At the time, that was like one of the first major public endorsements of any right-wing productions, and it kind of held weight a bit more then, more than it would have now, because I don't think Elon at the time had gone full mask off with his right-wing ideas. So all the right-wing podcasts at the time were raving over this, partly because the movie got this huge push. The bigger reason for the joy, looking back at it now, was more so that this event served as a big kind of middle finger to the left. And it's funny how I remember them being the ones who kept describing the left as rabid individuals whose sole purpose was to hate on the right-wing populace. So, based on my recollection of events, truly these actions are done out of spite. And now that I'm only a little more observant of things around me, I believe that spite is a dangerous feeling to possess because it distracts from the tangible goals an individual or collective may possess, and it now steers them into a direction of outperforming the opposing individual or collective. So this is why many people who voted for Trump now ended up regretting their votes. This is also the reason why, from what I caught wind of online throughout this week, that Nicki Minaj is believed to have supported Trump recently, supposedly because of her rivals, Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion, because they endorsed Kamala Harris's presidential campaign. Then this is also why, I believe that all those uptight aunties I grew up with were kind of harsh on girls that they didn't comply with the dress codes they believed to be godly or God-sent or whatever. The same can also be said for this Erica company and why they will host a similar event on the same day and around the same time as the Super Bowl. It's spite. Spite. So, that's just my 2 cents on this topic right now. I don't want to bloat the recording by talking about the other things I observed throughout the week. So maybe I'll have to make multiple recordings throughout the week, depending on the rates at which pressing or even non-pressing events come. It's a pain making these recordings, by the way, because at times I have to transcribe the words I say, because I understand that my accent may not be the most comprehensible out there, especially now that I have like a cavity, so it's affecting my speech. But that's it for now. Thank you for listening.